Name is Scott Fisk, and in this tutorial we're going to discuss how to make a real basic responsive web page design. So this is the web page that we're going to make over in Photoshop. Here's the web page. It's broken up. This is the main container area that holds everything together. We have a header up here at the top. We have navigation area. We have a main focal point graphic. We have text, and then we have a footer area, and that's how we're going to have to build this out. So the first thing we're going to do is just save out this graphic at the top. I already did this just to speed things along. Save that for web. I'm making it bigger than it needs to be so it can be responsive. That's going to allow that to fit that div area at the top, and it will grow and shrink. Same thing with this image. You crop that out and save it right here. Save for web. And we're good to go into Dreamweaver at this point. I'm going File, New. My desktop setting is set to 55%. Tablet's a little higher at 93%. Mobile at 91%. I'm leaving the desktop a little bit more narrow because my images, I have a big monitor, and I just simply don't need that sort of full screen functionality because my big images aren't quite big enough. I'm going to hit Create. I'm going to call this Style Sheet 5. Hit Save. And down here in the lower right, you'll notice there is a mobile, a tablet, and a desktop view. I'm going to work mostly in desktop view. Down here in the bottom area, I always work in split view. At the top, we have a sort of WYSIWYG view. At the bottom, we can pay attention to the code. And you really do need to pay attention to the code, particularly where the cursor is located at. Dreamweaver by default has inserted 2 div boxes. We have this main container, and then we have a smaller fluid div box inside. I'm going to get rid of that smaller box. I'm just going to hit delete, and we are left with one grid container. I'm clicking, and again, always pay attention to where that cursor's at, clicking in the middle, and we are going to start creating our boxes, which are going to just hold everything in place for our site. So I'm going to start by clicking on header. We're going to call this header. Behind that, I'm going to insert nav, call it nav. Insert as fluid grid element on all these things, which makes it responsive. Inside of that nav area, I'm going to insert divs that just control the placement of my individual little boxes or my individual menu items, and I'm just going to call this nav call 1. Hit OK. And at this point, I could go in and say, for example, name this home, and I could duplicate it over and over again. Shrink it down by just dragging this in a little bit. And this move upper row, that's actually float in HTML. That floats them all, which allows them to go side by side. Pull this in just a little more so they can all fit, and we are ready to continue on. So down here in the code, I'm going behind the nav area, and I'm going to insert another div. This div is going to be called main image. Then behind that, I'm inserting another one called body text. 2. And then I'm going to insert one last div behind that one, and it's going to be called footer. We are ready to begin. So up here at the very top, I'm just going to remove this text. Go down here, make sure my cursor's in the right spot. I'm going to insert that logo. This symbol represents in HTML space. It doesn't need to be there. Just getting rid of that. I want to make sure I'm in the right spot. I'm just going to say insert, image, logo. And sometimes it squeezes the image in like this. That just drives me nuts when that happens. That really isn't supposed to happen, so what I'm going to do is just erase it and try it again. The exact same thing, just a little fluky thing. Insert, image. There we go, work that time. Continuing on, we're going to make these buttons look like links, act like links. I'm just double clicking on them. There's a little hyperlink button here, and I'm going to have this link to Google just as an example. www.google.com. Make sure you always put the HTTP at the front or it's not going to work. And one last button. There we go. And in the main image area, I'm going to go into that, remove the text. And that is located right here. Again, removing the space. I'm inserting one little space just to make sure my cursor is in the right spot. Insert image. This one's called focal graphic. And it did that squeeze image thing again. I apologize for that. Insert image. That'll work. If I try this one more time, it should work like a charm. And this is happening because my image is fairly large, and it just takes a couple times. And then Dreamweaver finally handled it correctly and shrunk it down for me. I left the image large because it's responsive, and if it's a big monitor, it's gonna grow. So it's shrinking it down and placing it in this box at this point. Okay, moving on. Body text. This is my body text div right here. Somehow it got moved up above the image, so I'm just going to drag and drop it down below the image one. You shouldn't have to do that if you're following along. So now my body text image is below, or my body text area is below the image again. So at this point, I'm going to go over and just copy and paste my text out of Dreamweaver, my example text, right into this area. And just pasting it in. And then we have one last little piece to add, and that would be this copyright information at the bottom. So copy and paste. And now we're good to go. We've done all the basic div structure work, and now we can go in and really have fun sort of tweaking the information so it looks the way it's supposed to look. So let's get started. That's all done in the CSS Designer area. Going into CSS Designer, and if I click in a particular area, you're going to see it's changing over here on the right. So if I click in my body text area, it selects body text, and it shows me the settings over here for body text. We're going to start with something simple. We're going to start with the footer. I'm clicking on footer, so it's selected footer here, and we're going to center that text. Your Dreamweaver, if you're using it for the first time, is not going to have that button click, the Show Set button. And if I click off of Show Set, it shows me all these possibilities, all these options. So what I'm looking for is the center button. Do take a few minutes and just look through and study all this stuff because there's a lot that you can do. And where it says text align, I can just click center, and you'll see it centered, just like that. The next thing I'm going to do is change my body text color to a gray. So I'm clicking on my body text 2 div. It's selected it here. And I can come over here to the text area and change the color to a dark gray, which just makes it look a little bit nicer, a little bit more beautiful. And I'm sort of starting at the bottom and working my way up. The next thing I want to do is add a wonderful little underline that separates the content, my body text area, from the footer area. And to do that, we just add an HR into the code. So again, make sure your cursor's in the right spot. And I'm clicking behind the text. I'm just going to type HR in carets around it. And you'll see it added this nice little subtle gray bar. And we can change the color of it too by hitting space in there. And I'm just going to click on the little color option. And I can use the eyedropper to select one of the colors out of here, out of the picture, and click, and it changes it to a darker tone. The next thing we want to do as we sort of work our way up is change the location of our buttons so they're a little bit more spaced out. So I'm going to click on one of those divs, those boxes. It's lagging a little bit. So clicking on one of those boxes, and it selected it. And now I have all the settings pulled up for that. We have all these margin, padding, position. We can sort of space things out. And this is something you'll just have to play with a little bit to get the hang of. But we can turn the padding on, turn it up a little bit, and you'll see they just space out visually a lot better if you just space them out like that. The next thing that we want to do is change the link colors. And to change the link colors, by default, we click anywhere down here in the code. And then I can go up to the top and say Modify Page Properties. And in here we can change things such as the background image, the background color, the overall page color, the links, visited links. What I'm going to do is take my link color and make it so it also matches the color scheme of the web page. And you have to change the visited link and active link. And there are a couple places where you could change this. If one doesn't work, just go to the, see, this is the actual one. It's not the one under HTML, it's the one under CSS, because we've been using the CSS, so that's been activated. So again, just click on the color. These rollover links are a lot of fun. You can do a lot of stuff with them. It's quite creative. And hit OK. And you'll see it changed in color. And now we've done enough now that we really need to sort of test it properly and see how it looks. I'm just going to say Preview in Firefox. Save it and take a look at it. And I'm on a dual monitor setup here, so let me pull this up again so you can see it. There we go. And pull it over. And this is what we have. Notice the background is green. It's really not green. That's something that's pulling in from another CSS file that I was playing with a little bit ago. But I could fix it very easily. I will show you how to change that background color. Again, it's really simple. Just go to Modify Page Properties. And there's where you can change the background color right there. So I like that background color. The problem is we can't read all of the text that's on top of it. So what we need to do is select the main container that holds all of this together. So I can select on the main container in the code, which starts at the very top of this body area, right underneath body, div class grid container, and go all the way down to the bottom where it says stop div. And at this point, I could go in and just change the background color of that box to white right here, and it should be a whole lot easier to read. And we're going to test it again, and we are good to go at this point. This looks pretty darn close to how the original Photoshop document looked, which is always the goal when you're doing this kind of thing. And we're good to go. I hope you enjoyed this presentation. I will definitely be creating more. Hope to hear from you soon. Thanks. Bye-bye.